Hello, welcome to another local author chat. My name is Ellen Miles. I'm the outreach librarian here at the Camas Public Library, and I am here today with Kate Kort, author of Tempered. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining me today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's just jump right into it. My first question is, I just was hoping you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up mostly in Ohio and some in St. Louis. And then I went to college at Truman State University in Northeast Missouri. I studied English there. And then after graduation, got married and we lived in Kansas City for a few years. And now we're in Vancouver and we've been here almost 12 years now. We first lived in Camas when we moved out here. So my older kids went to story time at the Camas Library and it was really wonderful. And so we have 4 kids. The youngest is 3 and the oldest is almost 13. So busy.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Full household.
Yeah.
So your book, Tempered, what was it like to write it?
It was kind of interesting because it's a sequel and I didn't really know how that would go. I wasn't sure, like, is this even going to be enough material for a whole second book? I had one kind of major plot point in mind when I was thinking about, oh, this would be interesting to explore this idea because it's a sequel to my first book called Glass, which is all about this kind of unorthodox therapy about these kind of troubled people trying to vent emotions through smashing glass, basically, and having this sort of amateur therapist help them through it. And so then Tempered comes 10 years later when we see kind of the aftermath of how did that go? Did it help anybody? Did it hurt anybody? And so the plot line that I had in mind was, well, what if someone took that idea and someone who was doing it with the original characters for therapy, but then what if they kind of opened their own place and made it more for entertainment? And what would that, how would the original characters feel about that and what would happen? And so that was kind of an interesting dynamic to explore, but the sort of the process of writing, it's different for each book. I found this is my 3rd book. But it was very similar to writing the first one because they're connected. So it's a lot of, oh, I have an idea for a scene. I'm going to explore that, but I don't know where it's going to fit, if it's going to make the final cut. But I'm not much of an outliner. I just kind of, if I have an idea, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go there and just see where it takes me. So yeah, it was really, there was a lot of questioning, a lot of, writing way too much and then cutting it, but it was worth it because I'm really happy with the final product. So it was really a valuable process.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. And I know this is, you mentioned this is your 3rd book, but when Tempered got published, how did that happen? Was it the same as the first 2?
Yeah, I have a long relationship with my publisher, Brickmantle Books, run by Jennifer Geist. She's like my main contact there. And they've just been amazing to work with. They published, my first, second book, and now my 3rd. The first one was in 2015, so I've been with them for a long time. They're a smaller publisher based out of St. Louis and Bloomington, Indiana, and they focus on literary fiction and poetry. So I first started out, I had this manuscript for my first book and I was like 23. I was like, well, it seems like a lot of people get agents, and that's how they go about getting published. I was like, I would love to have it published. So I spent a whole lot of time like querying agents. And I think that was kind of the wrong path for this book. I got a lot of people saying, well, this sounds a little too dark, or this sounds like I'm not sure what category I would put it into to try to market it. And so what ended up being really successful was I was like, okay, I'm going to look into kind of a small press that they tend to have quirkier interests. And if you find one that fits, it's a lot easier to get someone who's excited about your work as much as you are. And so that was a really good avenue. It just took a while for me to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Was there anything that surprised you during the whole process of publishing Tempered or your other books?
Um, the publishing process, I mean, I guess what surprised me is just how many times you will have to read it. Like they've got editors and they're amazing and they do such great work, but they read it so many times. I read it so many times and you're always catching things. Like it's amazing how many times you can read it and still like I was like sending them, oh, I want to change this like 11th hour changes. I was like, no, but now it's good. Now it's good. But so that was really interesting. And just in terms of the writing process, it kind of always surprises me how little I know about what's going to happen before I write it. Some things, it seems like the characters do things that surprise me, and it feels in certain ways out of my hands at some point. So, kind of, as I said, I've got ideas of scenes or a few plot points, but the heart of the story always seems to come in the moment, which it does still feel like a surprise.
Well, do you have a piece of advice for aspiring authors?
I would say in terms of if you're looking to be published, I would suggest avoiding a kind of mass market campaign where you send like the same letter to everybody and like hope that someone will be interested. Because I mean, at least I found really doing your research on publishing houses or specific places where you think it might be a good fit, then you won't have to send to as many places. And it's worth it to find someone who's on the same page as you are. And so, yeah, that would be my main point of advice.
That's great advice. Yeah. What's one of your personal favorite books that you would recommend to everybody?
One book I do tell everybody to read, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. So I read this for the first time in college for one of my Russian lit classes, and I just get more out of it every time I read it. It's a political satire. It's super funny and explores kind of the meaning of good and evil and lots of different things, but it was, banned for a long time. And parts of it are still censored, but it's very critical of like this early 1900s Soviet society and sort of state overreach, but it's like hysterically funny at the same time. So it's got a lot of different things going on, and it's a really good one.
Great. I'll link to that in the show notes on the YouTube page.
Awesome.
So I do have a couple questions from the audience that came in ahead of time. So the first question, Maeve from Washougal wants to know, how did you know you wanted to be an author?
Well, I've always been drawn to writing, even like elementary, middle school, like making up little poems and little short stories, and not just for class stuff, just sort of on my own time and just reading a ton. Every time like I read a novel or I've read books, like I get just really amazed with how writers put words together in such, beautiful, compelling ways. And that just became something like, oh, I would like to do that. I would like to try that. And so I didn't really do much full length like novel writing before my first book. That was the first thing I'd really ever written. But once I had an idea, it just kind of snowballed, and I was like, oh, I can really give that a try. So yeah, I think a lot of reading contributed to my love of writing.
That's awesome. David from Camus asks, what do you do if you have writer's block?
Oh, that's a really good one. Well, it's interesting because the way I write, I get a sort of a wave of motivation, and I know it's not going to last. There will be an end, and I will stop having ideas and this kind of flow of creativity. So I tend to write nonstop for, it could be a month or 2 months or 3 months, like I'm writing in all of my free time. And then when I hit that end, I know I have to take a break, and it's like for months, but then I come back to it. So for me personally, I know I have to accept when I'm not in a place to write and just let that be, do some other things, read some things, and just kind of do daily life for a while. Because I don't think that's one of the things you can really force and get a good product at the end of it. It's got to be more natural, I think.
Well, Kate, how can people find you and your book?
My publisher's website, it's got it up, brickmantlebooks.com, on Amazon, like Barnes and Noble is a good place to find it. Anybody can email me if they like. I love getting mail. My email is katekort@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. KateKort543 is what I am on both of those. And yeah, feel free to reach out for any reason.
And I think we have a copy of it in the library too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And I think glass is floating around in the system too from years
Nice.
ago. So you can get
Awesome.
both.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kate, it was a pleasure chatting. Thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy your spring.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.